words, things you put in.
Basically between every story. Every Twitter
Yeah,
file.
let's not do that again.
Yeah. But then we've got Michael Schellenberger, and he's talking about the Hunter laptop, which is exactly kind of how the FBI convinced Yoel Roth and convinced these guys and set up Twitter and Facebook and everybody else to pre-believe that the laptop was going to be fake before the story even came out. Hey, there's going to be a story that's probably going to come out before the election that's going to be some kind of digital something, but it's definitely not real. They already knew that it was real. Yes, Crab says we need marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong. All right.
No, I'm not.
How the FBI and intel community discredited factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14, 2020. This one has 96.2 million views and over 166,000 likes. And it's not all right-wingers, guys. I promise you, it's not. In Twitter File 7, we present evidence pointing to an organized effort by representatives of the intel community aimed at senior executives at news and social media companies to discredit leaked information about Hunter Biden before and after it was published. Dude, this has been, now again, we knew that they did this, but now you see the emails, you see the actual influence and how it was done. So that's actually the sign. It says on December 9th, 2019, the FBI issues a subpoena for and takes possession of Hunter Biden's laptop. This is way before the story comes out. So they knew they had the laptop. They knew what was on it back in December of 2019. By August of 2020, Mac Isaac, who's the owner of the repair shop that Hunter dropped the laptop off at, had still not heard back from the FBI, even though he'd discovered evidence of criminal activity. And so he emails Rudy Giuliani, who was under FBI surveillance at the time. In early October, Giuliani gives it to the New York Post. Shortly before 7 p.m. on the 13th, Hunter's lawyer emails JP Mac Isaac. Hunter and Matsiris, that's his lawyer, I believe, had just learned from the New York Post that its story about the laptop would be published the next day. At 9:22 p.m. Eastern, Elvis Chan, who we've talked about in the last Twitter files, sends 10 documents to Twitter's then head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, through Teleporter. You heard about Teleporter. It's a one-way communications channel from the FBI to Twitter. And the Teleporter is one-way vanishing messages. They explode over time. It's almost like Go Gadget. This message will explode, will self-destruct in 8 seconds. So the next day, on October 14th, New York Post runs its explosive story revealing the business dealings of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Except, again, he wasn't President Joe Biden then. Every single fact in it was accurate. May I repeat again, every single fact in that article was accurate. And yet within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censored the New York Post article, preventing it from spreading and, more importantly, undermining its credibility in the minds of many Americans. Why is that? What exactly happened? Well, on December 2nd, Matt Taibbi, of course, we covered in the first one, described the debate inside Twitter over its decision to censor a wholly accurate article. Since then, we've discovered new info that points to an organized effort by the intel community to influence Twitter and other platforms, which we're also aware of. But first, and I'm not going to play this video, but I highly encourage everyone to watch it. It's important to understand that Hunter Biden earned tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, including ones linked to China's government, for which Hunter offered no real work. There's an interview
to the big guy,
right, by Peter Schweizer. Okay, that's in the Twitter files. You can watch it, and you can link to it there. Yet during all of 2020, the FBI and law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. This is from a sworn declaration by Roth given in December 2020, where he's saying that since 2018, I've had regular meetings with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and industry peers regarding election security. Why he's testifying, I don't remember exactly, but that's pretty crazy. I think it's during about one of the lawsuits that have been brought against Twitter for censorship. During these weekly meetings, the federal and law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected hack and leak operations by state actors might occur in the period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October. It's called the October surprise, and everybody knew it was going to happen. I was told in these meetings that the intel community expected that individuals associated with political campaigns would be subject to hacking attacks, and that material obtained through these hacking attacks would likely be disseminated over social media platforms, including Twitter. These expectations of hack and leak operations were discussed throughout 2020. I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. Look at how they set these guys up. They did the same to Facebook, according to Mark Zuckerberg. Right. And he said to Joe Rogan,
God, I bet he regrets going on Joe.
The FBI basically came to us and was like, hey, you should be on high alert. We thought there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. There's about to be some kind of dump similar to that. Yeah, they knew it because they had it.
High enough in he's also high enough in decision making at Facebook to know that.
Mm-hmm. Were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak operation
direct?
Well, that's something you kind of have to go right to the head. Were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak operation relating to Hunter Biden based on any new intel? No, they weren't. Quote, through our investigations, we did not see any similar competing intrusions to what had happened in 2016, admitted FBI agent Elvis Chan in November. Yep. Indeed, Twitter executives repeatedly reported very little Russian activity. E.g., on September 24th, 2020, Twitter told FBI it had removed 345 largely inactive accounts linked to previous coordinated Russian hacking attempts. They had little reach and low follower accounts. In fact, Twitter debunked false claims by journalists of foreign influence on its platform. Quote, we haven't seen evidence to support that claim by _NBC News of foreign control bots. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort. After FBI asked WAPO about a WAPO story on alleged foreign influence in a pro-Trump tweet, Twitter's Roth says, quote, the article makes a lot of insinuations, but we saw no evidence that was the case here. In fact, a lot of strong evidence pointing in the other direction. Yeah, thanks, Yoel. And it's not the first time that Twitter's Roth has pushed back against the FBI, and he should. In January 2020, Roth resisted FBI efforts to get Twitter to share data outside the normal search warrant process. FBI, ACAB, guys, ACAB, FBI too. Pressure had been growing. We've seen a sustained, if uncoordinated, effort by the IC to push us to share more info and change our API policies. And I think they did. They're probing and pushing everywhere they can, including by whispering to congressional staff. Time and again, FBI asks Twitter for evidence of foreign influence, and Twitter responds that they aren't finding anything worth reporting. Again, quote, we haven't yet identified activity that we'd typically refer to you or even flag as interesting to the foreign influence context. However, despite Twitter's pushback, the FBI repeatedly requests information from Twitter that Twitter has already made clear it will not share outside normal legal channels. Then in July of 2020, the FBI's Elvis Chan arranges for temporary top secret security clearances for Twitter executives so that the FBI can share information about threats to the upcoming elections with these Twitter execs. Give me a break. On August 11, 2020, the FBI's Chan shares information with Twitter's Roth relating to the Russian hacking organization APT28 through the FBI's secure one-way communications channel Teleporter. Recently, Yoel Roth told Kara Swisher that he had been primed to think about the Russian hacking group APT28 before news of the Hunter Biden laptop came out. When it did, Roth said, quote, "It set off every single one of my finely tuned APT-28 hack and leap campaign alarm bells." Yeah, they knew it was coming from there because they had the laptop and they knew exactly how they were going to come at them. And they were surveilling Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
So they knew exactly what Rudy's plan was. In August of 2020, FBI's Chan asked Twitter, "Does anyone there have top secret clearance?" This is what gets really weird. When someone mentions Jim Baker, Chan responds, "I don't know how I forgot him," which is an odd claim, given that Chan's job is to monitor Twitter, not to mention that they work together at the FBI. Who's Jim Baker? This is important. Now, we've talked about Jim Baker. I think we talked about him in the first Twitter files. He's the guy that ended up getting fired, and he's the one that Elon, quote unquote, forgot to fire or somehow didn't fire when he first took over, that had access to the Twitter files and vetted them before they were handed over. What he deleted, still nobody's released. Nobody's talked about if he made any adjustments and what he had access to. That still hasn't come out yet. So why? Who's Jim Baker? Oh, he's just the former general counsel of the FBI for 4 years, both during Obama and the Trump years. And he's one of the most powerful men in the U.S. intel community. No big deal. Baker has moved in and out of government for 30 years, serving stints at CNN, Bridgewater Capital, and the Brookings Institute. So think tanks, big hedge funds. As general counsel of the FBI, Baker played a central role in making the case internally for an investigation of Donald Trump. And Baker wasn't the only senior FBI exec involved in the Trump investigation to go to Twitter. Dawn Burton, who's a former Department of Chief of Staff to FBI head James Comey, who initiated the investigation of Trump, joined Twitter in 2019 as director of strategy. As of 2020, there were so many former FBI employees, Boo alumni, working at Twitter that they created their own private Slack channel and a crib sheet to onboard new FBI arrivals. And here's one to Jim Baker. "Hey, Jim, so excited you're here. I'm no longer the newest Boo alum." From Matthew Williams. "Here's a Boo to Twitter translation chart I mentioned." So literally, like, for all the different offices, climate survey, intranet homepage, team topic sites. It used to be FBI SharePoint sites. Now Twitter uses Confluence. These are the different programs that you use. Expense tool was Trip for the Bureau.
Yeah.
Now it's Concur. Personnel tool, you were using EPA and HR Source. Now you're using Workday. 401k, and what you use to access all your different programs, similar to how you were using it at the Bureau. Thanks so much. Here's
send that to the Vanguard.
Right? Efforts continued to influence Twitter's Yoel Roth. Seems like they just targeted this guy, and I feel bad for him in a way, but at the same time, look, he knew what he was, where he was, and what job he had, and he continued to do it. In September 2020, Roth participated in an Aspen Institute tabletop exercise and a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. How interesting. The goal was to shape how the media covered it and how social media carried it. So wait a minute. 4 weeks, not even 4 weeks before, but weeks before the Hunter Biden laptop came out, the Aspen Institute literally held a conference where they game planned out what would happen if a Hunter Biden laptop came out. And nobody thought it was weird.
That sounds like,
right.
What was a South Park episode?
Right. The organizer was Vivian Schiller. Right. The organizer was Vivian Schiller, who's the former CEO of NPR, former head of news at Twitter.
Nice, polite Republicans.
Former general manager of the New York Times, and former chief digital officer at NBC News, steeped in mainstream media and government connections, basically. Attendees included Meta, or Facebook's head of security policy, and the top national security reporters for the Times, WAPO, and others. By mid-September 2020, Chan and Roth had set up an encrypted messaging network so employees from FBI and Twitter could communicate. They also agreed to create a virtual war room for all the internet industry plus FBI and ODNI traffic.
You probably shouldn't call it the virtual war room. We probably shouldn't call it the war room.
That's probably a bad idea. But then
there's no laughing in the war room.
No. So
fighting in the war room. That's it.
On September 15th, 2020, the FBI's Laura Demlow, who heads up the Foreign Influence Task Force, and Elvis Chan request to give a classified briefing for Jim Baker without any other Twitter staff, such as Yoel Roth, present. That's a little weird. On October 14th, shortly after the Post publishes its Hunter Biden laptop story, Roth says, "It isn't clearly violative of our hacked materials policy, nor is it clearly in violation of anything else," but adds, "This feels a lot like a somewhat subtle leak operation." I wonder why, because they primed you to think that way. In response to Roth, Baker repeatedly insists that the Hunter Biden materials were either faked, hacked, or both, and a violation of Twitter policy. And he does so over email and in a Google Doc on October 14th and 15th. Of course, he's the guy that the FBI put there to censor the frickin' thing. And yet it's inconceivable that Baker believed the Hunter Biden emails were either fake or hacked. Right, I had to do that. The New York Post had included a picture of the receipt signed by Hunter Biden, and an FBI subpoena showed that the agency had taken possession of the laptop in December of 2019. My screen just went black. Okay. As for the FBI, it would have taken a few hours for it to confirm that the laptop had belonged to Hunter. Indeed, it only took a few days for Peter Schweizer, journalist, to prove it. By 10 a.m., Twitter execs had bought into a wild hack and dump story. The suggestion from experts, which rings true, quote unquote, is that there was a hack that happened separately, and they loaded the hacked materials on the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware. Right. At 3:38 p.m. Yep. This is the cover story they're putting out. At 3:38 p.m. on the same day, October 14th, Baker arranges a phone conversation with Matthew J. Perry, not from the show Friends, in the office of the general counsel from the FBI. The influence operation persuaded Twitter execs that the Hunter Biden laptop did not come from a whistleblower. One link to a Hill article based on a WAPO article from October 15th, which falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. Russia. There is evidence that FBI agents have warned elected officials of foreign influence with the primary goal of leaking the information to the news media. This is a political dirty trick used to create the perception of impropriety. In 2020, the FBI gave a briefing to Senator Chuck Grassley and Johnson, claiming evidence of Russian interference into their investigation of Hunter Biden. The briefing angered the senators, who say it was done to discredit their investigation. Yes, it was. But the unnecessary FBI briefing provided the Democrats and liberal media the vehicle to spread their false narrative that our work advanced Russian disinformation. Notably, then FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was investigated not once but twice in 2017 and again in 2019 for what? Leaking information to the news media.
Yep.
For real. This is the guy that went to go work at Twitter as their general counsel. You're saying he's under criminal investigation?
Yep.
That's why you're not letting him answer, Meadows did? Yes. In the end, the FBI's influence campaign aimed at executives at news media, Twitter, and other social media companies worked. They censored and discredited the Hunter Biden laptop story. By December 2020, Baker and his colleagues even sent a note of thanks to the FBI for its work. The FBI's influence campaign may have been helped by the fact that it was paying Twitter millions of dollars for its staff time. Yeah. Yep. Insult to injury, quote, "I'm happy to report that we've collected more than almost $3.5 million since October 2019, reports an associate of Jim Baker in early 2021. And the pressure from FBI on social media platforms continues. In just this August, Twitter execs prepared for a meeting with the FBI whose goal was, quote, to convince us to produce even more FBI EDRs. What are EDRs? Emergency Disclosure Requests, which is a warrantless search.
Yep.
In response to the Twitter Files revelation of high-level FBI agents at Twitter, Jim Jordan, who we're no big fans of, says that he has concerns over whether the government was running a misinformation operation on we the people. Yeah, I'm worried about whether you were running a misinformation for the coach that you were assistant coaches with at Ohio State, Jim Jordan. But yes, I agree with you. Anyone who reads the Twitter files, regardless of their political orientation, should share these concerns. Yes, Michael Schellenberger. But we should also investigate Jim Jordan.